Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Story Behind the Resume. I'm Abu Sayam, your host and creator. With over 12 years in digital marketing, e-commerce, and technology project management, I've been inspired by the real stories that shape successful careers. This series was born from my own journey filled with twists and turns, realizing that resumes show only. Here we dive beyond job titles to explore the challenges, the failures, and pivotal moments that truly define success. My goal is to offer you practical insights and inspiration to help navigate your career. Thank you for joining us and enjoy today's conversation. I have my guest Jeff online today. Jeff has been working in IT since he was 13 years old. Wow. He's currently a Smartsheet solution architect and has had various roles in both financial services and human capital management, taking on roles such as implementation consultant and customer success manager, working with several Fortune 500 customers. Jeff, any first words from you?
I think you summed it up quite well.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll dive into that was the question. Um, we're going to talk about the early career and background of Jeff. Um, on our first segment, we're diving into the journey of our guest, Jeff here. Starting right at the beginning, we'll explore his educational background and how he chose his field, sparked his interest in it. Then we'll move into those first steps in the professional world, discussing his first job and the motivations behind the choice. Finally, we'll get into some key lessons, challenges they faced early on, experiences that helped shape their, whether you are a student, new to your field, or simply interested in learning from the paths of successful professionals. This conversation will provide real insights and inspiration for your own journey. So let's get started. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Would you please, of course, a bit about your educational background for our listeners?
Sure. So, originally, towards the end of high school, my goal was to be a computer engineer. But I quickly found out and realized that I was quite terrible at physics. Um,
Oh,
so, I decided that when I applied to CEGEP, so CEGEP, for those who don't know, is basically Quebec's version of grades 12 and 13 and kind of acts as an introduction to university. So I
mhm.
ended up being accepted into the honors commerce program. And then towards the end of CEGEP, I realized that I wanted to do something that combined both IT and business. So I didn't know there was a program called information systems. I actually never heard about it at that point in my entire life. So a career counselor suggested that I apply to that program at McGill University. So once I was there, once I went to McGill, I realized that I also had an interest in international business. So I ended up doing a concentration abroad in Budapest for 4 months and did most of that concentration over there.
Wow, that's interesting. So, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear some music.
Oh, okay. Sorry for the distraction. Go ahead.
So yeah, so that pretty much sums up my educational background.
I was asking, how was Budapest like?
Oh, how was Budapest like?
Yes.
That was probably amongst the best 4 months of my entire education experience.
Oh, wow. And the weather?
I would say it doesn't get too cold there, but the summers, as you know, those European summers are quite
Hmm.
something.
Awesome. Awesome. In terms of your first job, how was your first job? Did you choose the industry or it came in front of you?
So uh, I had a couple of jobs before I started my career. So as you mentioned at the beginning, I had my first, um, I started working since I was 13. So
Oh,
so I had a business along with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
building websites and fixing people's computers right when the dot-com uh, f- like phase, I guess, started.
Mm-hmm.
So I did
Right.
some websites. I was fixing computers in my community, um, and I did this for several years. And then later on, I had a few other jobs before starting my actual career before graduating. So I worked in tech support for both Nestle and McGill University, where I did support in both English and French. I had an internship as an e-communication specialist for the McGill Alumni Association. I think at some point I was also a teacher's assistant at McGill for the
Right.
information course. I worked at Staples a bit, selling computers and electronics, and also was creating and maintaining a database at the allergy department for the Children's Hospital. So really, from a very early age, I already knew that I wanted to work in IT. That's what I enjoyed, and that's really where I felt the most comfortable.
That's amazing. I had the same element when I was growing up because I was in love with computers, and it always hit me like I need to do something with computers later on, but my line of education was different. Later on, I kind of switched somehow. Any key lessons you want to share for the listeners?
Yes. So unfortunately, I find that a lot of people figure out quite late that they regret the
Hmm.
industry that they choose to work in.
Right.
So I would say my advice would be to start figuring out what interests you from a career perspective, really as early as you possibly can. And I would
Hmm.
recommend that. I would recommend two things. So number one, really connect with people early on that can put you on that right path, right? So this can be
Yeah.
people either in the industry, mentors, or career counselors. I started this process already at the end of high school.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
second point is I found that my earlier jobs and internships really solidified my career choice. So during that period between high school and university, I would suggest taking advantage of those internships, summer jobs, and part time jobs to really see if the
Hmm.
industry you are seeking is the right fit for
Hmm.
you.
That's true. And you can do multiple internships just to see, try it out. Like, hey, maybe I can try banking, or I'll go to some Amazon warehouse and try to feel like how whether you fit in or whether you like the daily tasks or not. So I think that's a great lesson. And internship is the right way to try out the industry that you will be, spending the rest of your life probably. A lot of people
Hmm.
do change their career path, but I think it's a great way to try out.
And there's
Switching
also
gear,
nothing.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 you're not finished.
I was going to say one last thing is that there's also nothing wrong with switching programs while you're in university, right? Before
Hmm.
you graduate, really just to make sure that before you are done with university, you feel confident, I guess, that you made the right choice in your selection of your program.
That's right. That's right. Switching a little bit of gear towards career growth and transition. Um, Throughout my career, my key milestones like promotions, job changes, and bold moves into new industry have shaped who I am today. Pivotal moment was leaving a stable position for a risky role I believed in, which led to a career I'm passionate about and taught me to trust my instincts and embrace change. Along the way, I built essential skills from mastering technical tools to developing leadership and communication abilities, continue learning through training, mentorship, and experience. So that was one of my biggest, I would say, habit or passion. Each move and skill added a new layer to my journey, to be honest, shaping my career in ways I've never expected, and also from learning from many different leaders and people along the journey. So, Jeff, I want to ask you, what are some of your major milestones and decisions and skills you decided to develop?
So a lot of my career decisions and roles were a result of circumstances, unexpected opportunities, and general good mentorship. So during my last year of university, I already knew that I wanted to be some form of IT consultant and
Mhm.
also to be able to combine that with my love of travel. So I wanted to have the type of
Wow.
job where I could be the bridge between the business and the technology while traveling to work with customers in person. So at that time, Accenture checked off all the boxes. So I was at Accenture for about 5 years as a financial services implementation consultant. And during that time, I primarily focused on integrations, data conversion, and testing. And I worked in various cities across Canada, along with New York City and Newcastle, UK. So when I hit the age of around 30, I was ready to hang up my suitcase, right? And I was ready to take a break from the traveling. And then at that point, I was starting to explore other opportunities.
I
So
see.
at some
What's
point,
taking a toll on you? That's why you switched gear?
it was taking a toll. And at 30, I mentally, I guess I figured it was time for me to settle down, and be more like, I guess, start setting down roots in one place rather than
I see.
being all over the place all
Right.
the
So how
time.
many how many you travel around during that gig of yours?
Oh, so I worked in 3 countries, but I traveled to, like, especially when I lived in the UK, I traveled
Yeah.
to almost a different country every weekend.
Oh, wow. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And Europe is very the countries is very close by. I was in France, I think Germany and Austria within hours, so it didn't take me long.
And you also have budget airlines, so you could do that also in an affordable manner as well.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it is. And then you joined Serdi, and then what happened?
So at some point, a recruiter from Ceridian, which is now I think it's called Dayforce, they reached out to me for a bilingual data conversion consultant role, specifically in human capital management, which was a good fit at the time. So then I spent 3 years as a data conversion consultant over there. Um, and then after a certain amount of time, I think it was like about 3 years, management recommended that I explore the possibility of becoming a project manager, given my skills and experience. So I figured I would take a chance and give that a try since it was something new and sounded something interesting, right? So I ended up completing a project management course at the University of Toronto, where they sent
Okay.
me. They covered that. They to gain that I guess experience, and then I spent 2 years there as a project manager, specifically for global HCM implementations.
Hmm.
And then around the time my son was born, I started exploring other opportunities once again. So I came across Kainos, which was a company based out of Northern Ireland, and they
Right.
just opened their Canadian office. So they were
Oh,
looking
wow.
for a project manager to manage the implementations of their automated testing product for Workday, specifically in North America. So
I
I saw
see.
this as a perfect fit because it was kind of like a startup. Like the company was around, has been around, I think, since the 80s, but the this office was literally a few months old. So I figured it would be interesting to come in kind of at the ground up, at least from the Canadian standpoint.
Right.
So I did see that as a perfect fit, even though it was a bit risky considering I had a newborn and I didn't really know much about the
True.
company. Um, but I took the risk, and then I eventually ended up getting my Workday Engagement Manager and HCM certifications there, which is mandatory
Nice.
if you are going to be working in the if you're an implementer in Workday.
Yeah.
And then after doing
How
project
long that
man,
did
yes.
if you want to dive into a little bit of your since how long did you study for? How long it took? Did you have any training courses that you went through?
You're taught for this
The
role in
ACM,
particular.
yeah, for
So
Workday and ACM certifications.
So it's a good question. I barely heard of Workday when I applied for this job. Okay, so
Hmm.
um, I just knew about it because I was in the industry, but I didn't know much more than that. So what they do is they make you, if you're an implementer, they make you take a certification to make sure that you are, um, you know, that you have the confidence to
Yeah.
implement in their system, for obvious reasons, and it's mandatory. You must pass. You must pass the
Right.
exam.
Right. Right.
Um, so through that, I learned a lot about how the system works. through other people. When I was studying for that exam, people were helping me, and I did get some hands-on experience as well.
And how long
So,
was that ago? Like it was in the
so I
2020s
joined.
or
So I joined Kainos in 2019.
okay.
So
Okay,
I was
so
there
about
for
5
about
years ago.
5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And then in the last, I would say about 2-ish years, um, I wanted to try something new again. So I
Okay.
saw that there was an internal position open for a customer success manager role. So I applied to that and I got that position. And then
Oh,
that role
nice.
really helped me develop my sales skills because that was a set of skills like I had no experience with. So thankfully that they let me take on that role, and I learned a lot in that period of time. And then that was my last role that was prior to my current one.
I see. Well, that must have been a good years because it also includes the pandemic period where
Oh
you have to
yeah,
do a lot of
that's right.
remote work, so you didn't have to go to the office, and we're all trying to figure out how the work life and in personal life balance would be. How did you manage your kids at home and then work at home at the same time?
So luckily my wife was on maternity leave at the time, so she was able to take care of our son. So
Nice.
I guess for us it wasn't as stressful probably as others. And as soon as he was able, I think after he was like a year and a half, he was in daycare. But I think at that point, a lot of, well, no, that was still in the heart of COVID. But yeah, it's during once he was in daycare, it was tricky because they would close the daycare, you'd have to come back,
Right.
and then they would close it for 2 weeks, right? And then
Right, right, right. You have to balance
when I was
it,
supposed to stay
right?
home, yeah. So now that you're bringing that up, yes,
Yeah, of course.
that piece was that time of was difficult. Yes,
Yeah. Did you do any certifications or manage to do any learning throughout that, when everyone
S-
was kind of at home?
that's a good question too, because those certifications I mentioned used to be in person and they were mandatory in person. When I took
Right.
those certifications, it was during COVID, so it was all virtual. 2 weeks of training just on the screen. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Just for the viewers and listeners, if you have any questions, you can post it and I'll try to ask the guest and also show it on the screen. So I'm just looking at the chat to see who joined. If you guys have any questions for Jeff, feel free to ask. We have been talking about his career growth so far. And yeah, we're gonna deep dive a little bit on his current role and then what's the industry is like at as a consultant. So um, in my last role, each day was dynamic and filled with unique responsibilities, from strategizing with my team to ensure smooth project workflows and managing key stakeholder relationships. My focus was impactful outcomes. Staying ahead in a fast evolving industry meant keeping an eye on trends like digital transformation and AI. So I prioritize staying informed through industry reports, webinars, and networking. Balancing long-term strategic goals with immediate needs was a common challenge, requiring flexibility, quick decision making, and effective communication. These experiences taught me the value of adaptability and a strong support network. So, starting with LinkedIn, these are essentials for any aspiring professionals. What's your take on that? Specifically, your current role as Smart Sheet Solution Architect. What keeps you awake?
So my current role as a smart sheet solution architect at Curated Automation, which is where I work now, I find bridges all my past experiences now together. So for those of you who don't know much about Smartsheet, I can give a brief explanation. So Smartsheet is essentially Excel on steroids. So it is a software as a service which primarily focuses on collaboration. It is often used to collaborate on project timelines, documents, calendars, and even more using their premium apps. And one of the key features are their dashboards, which essentially brings all the data together and files
Mm-hmm.
into one central location. So in
I
terms
see.
of so in terms of my day to day, I work with clients to build scalable and repeatable solutions while giving the right people access to the right data and the files they need.
Right.
So several of my clients are Workday customers, and many of the solutions that I build revolve around project management. So my prior experience really allows me to go beyond Smartsheet and use my expertise to help clients build solutions that can tie back to Smartsheet, Workday, and project management all at the same time, which allows me to, which results in really the optimal solution. So I've completed several certifications, again,
Mm-hmm.
with one
Right.
more remaining, which I hope to complete by the end of the month, to really ensure, because you were asking to, how do I keep up to date? So
Yeah.
one of the ways is making sure I'm fully certified so I really know what is everything that is offered that I can actually implement and recommend to customers, really understanding the full product offering. So I also like to check out new features regularly. I spend a lot of time on the Smartsheet community to get an idea sometimes of the general shared pain points in that community and what are
Right.
some of the solutions for those pain points. um, and I also have some Smartsheet contacts where, um, if I want to get a better idea of when a feature's coming out, or um, some of these pain points, if I don't find them on the Smartsheet community, sometimes I reach out to them.
Right. Right.
So what keeps me up at night, I mean, this is more of a personal thing, is like when I build something, right? And I
Yeah.
know it works, but then I read up on it
Yeah.
later, like, oh, and I've realized there's a much better way to build it, and now it's too late. Like, I'll think about
Right.
that. I'm like, oh man, I should have built it that way.
So that's
I
like a
take that
process
away.
that you discovers.
Yeah. So I try to take that away for the next
Yeah.
time, but those are the type of things that, somebody will be like, oh man, I should have done a better job with that.
Yeah. I think everyone faces that. I've faced that many times. After I've done, I should have taken that step out, and that could have saved a few minutes or
Hmm.
even a day. And I've gone back and and explained it like, hey, this is the reason why we should eliminate a certain step, or maybe what do you guys think? So feedback collection, right? So the team, yeah, it's good, or yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna solve what you're trying to do. So I think constant feedback within your team, and then proposing new way of implementation, it's very, very valuable. And even
Hmm.
though you found it, sometimes the rest of the folks are not. So when you share, it's valuable to the team. Everyone learns and everyone kind of thinks and brainstorms, right? So I think that is something the teams should be working on constantly to improve. So in terms of uh, the challenges you face, what are the major challenges you face right now?
Um, Major challenges, I would say, sometimes being presented with a complex issue,
Hmm.
knowing that there's multiple ways of doing it,
Right.
but then trying to isolate the best way to do it,
I
especially with
see.
Smartsheet and you're talking with data. There's
Right.
like 10 right ways of doing things, but there's going to be one best way, right? So really
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that is based on your knowledge and best practices. Um, Sometimes that could be a challenge for, I would say, for the more complex issues.
Hmm. No, thanks for sharing that. I think that's very valuable. Um, Checking on time and also looking at the comments. I don't see any questions, so we'll move on to our next section, which is, what's your advice for career growth? I'm just gonna give a little bit background. Any career growth, or whoever is trying to grow their career, key skills like adaptability, problem solving, and strong communication. In my field, being flexible to industry changes, creatively tackling challenges and effectively communicating with diverse teams have advanced my career and made prospects more impactful. Networking and mentorship have, and that's why I'm passionate about this platform where networking is the heart of the show. Early mentors guided me through crucial decisions and built my confidence, while networking opened doors to new opportunities for me. Now I give back my mentors, sharing my experiences to inspire them. These reciprocal relationships are invaluable for building a strong, supportive professional community that I'm working towards. Jeff, I think our listeners would love to hear your thoughts on this. What are some of the essential skills and traits for success in this field?
So I would say building relationships and credibility with your customers is probably the number one thing. Not being afraid to tell customers that although what they are proposing may work, that you can
Mhm.
suggest something even better that will benefit them in the long run. I also think patience and general critical thinking skills goes a very long way.
Right. And I think there's a question that I would like to bring up. Um, how do you think your job will be impacted by generative AI? So that's asked by Rakin.
So I could tell you for Smartsheet already what they're doing. Um, so, for example, in my job, I have to do a lot of formulas, right? I come up with a lot of formulas for different logic to connect data together. So, in this example, Smartsheet has a feature to generate these formulas automatically. So how does that impact my job? Well, it makes my job a little bit more efficient because instead of spending time coming up with these formulas, I could put it through the AI. Yeah, even if it's not 100%, I could tweak it. It'll still be
Hmm.
quicker than me having
Right.
to do that from scratch and focus my time on more value add things, right? So in this particular context, that's how AI helps me and impacts my job.
Awesome. And Gen AI, I think, is impacting everyone's job nowadays. People are scared.
Hmm.
So because of time constraint, I'm going to move to our next section. Our rapid fire Q&A. I try to make it interesting because it's a shorter session. We'll have it even more rapid and have fun. Jeff, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You have to come back with your answer pretty quick in a short form. What's the best career advice you ever received?
I would say don't expect the opportunities to come knocking on your door. You need to
Hmm.
go after what you want.
Great. A book or podcast that influenced your career?
Nothing. I have nothing that comes really to mind at the moment on this one.
Okay, no worries. One skill everyone should learn.
Time management,
Yeah, that's critical. A mistake that taught you the
particularly in consulting, don't overpromise and underdeliver.
Oh, that's my motto.
Yeah,
uh, describe your career journey in 3 words.
full of surprises,
Full of
but in a
surprises.
positive way, not in a negative way.
Same here. We are almost coming to an end. I'm gonna take one more question for Jeff, and then we can close and wrap up. So there is
So,
Mohammed Zubair asking, what strategies do you use to prepare for a certification exam and successfully?
so be in touch with people who have already taken it to give you guidance. Some companies have their own internal material that's separate from the vendor's material, and I find like that's often better.
Yeah,
Yeah, really speak to those people to get an idea of like what you can expect in that exam, and that's totally legitimate. You are allowed to do that.
awesome. Thanks for asking that question, Mohammed Zubair. Um, um, I'm going to close the call just by making a few statements. Embracing change and taking risks lead to growth and new opportunities. So that the most impactful moves often feel risky but propel us forward. Resilience and adaptability are key in overcoming challenges, whether facing setbacks or tight deadlines. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your inspiring journey with us. From
Thanks for
starting
having
in
me.
IT at just 13, yeah, I'm just trying to wrap up my head on your career journey. Like, you started at 13 years old, and now you are a smart sheet solution architect. Your story really highlights the power of following one's passion. You've emphasized the importance of early exploration and mentorship, connecting with industry professionals and gaining hands-on experience to find the right. I wish you all the best, Jeff. Thanks for being
Thank
on
you.
my show. Hopefully, we talk again.
For sure.
To our listeners, we hope Jeff's story has inspired you to embrace change, seek mentorship, and continually hone your skills as you navigate your own career path. Stay tuned for the next episode of Story Behind the Resume. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.